Hey folks, welcome back to Heel Toe's Corner Club podcast. Marcus DiSabella here, owner of Heel Toe and your host for this podcast. Today, I want to talk about an automotive topic, warranties, voiding warranties. I love the t-shirt or whatever it is. It says I void warranties. It's great because, part of what makes us enthusiasts is that we tinker with things, and tinkering almost always is going to involve voiding a warranty of some kind, and we all sort of know this, but some of us have varying levels of concern or GAF about it. I think my most recent plunge into having warranty discussions was when the second generation TLX Type S came out. We got ours. It was a fresh car, lots of people getting it. We were really involved, so it had a lot of opportunity to chat with people about that car, and there was all this concern about voiding warranties, and half the people, I don't know, maybe it wasn't half, but a bunch of people were like, screw it, what warranty, I don't care, throw whatever tune, whatever exhaust, whatever springs, it doesn't really matter. There's a case for that, but then there's also the folks that are like, I'm kind of like researching, I'm interested in products, but I don't want to void my warranty. Well, what's the right thing to do there? Well, the right thing to do is whatever you want. But here's where I think it turns into a real shame, is when folks aren't doing things to modify their car they really want to do, things that would make them happier with the car, give them more personal enjoyment because they're worried about voiding the warranty on the vehicle. And most of the rest of us, I'm more of a moderate modifier, and then you got the guys who are cut well, don't care. That assume that there is no warranty when they buy a new car. On the other end of the stage, looking over and just being like, man, you're just so misguided and wrong. Like, you want to keep the warranty in place, but these are reliable cars. They don't habitually fail, and they don't fail for no reason at all. And if there is a failure, like, why wouldn't that be covered? You get a lot of dealerships that would stand behind the fact that you maybe did some modifications as being a reason not to cover a failure of your vehicle. Well, people will ask me, I want to do this modification, but I don't want to void my warranty. Like, will this void my warranty? That's really the question that comes up. Will this void my warranty? Well, the answer is no, it won't void the warranty on your car. Like, nothing can actually void the warranty on your car. The car, at least, Hondas and Acuras, they come with a bumper-to-bumper warranty. That's everything on there is covered for manufacturer defect. If paint is peeling on one of the bumpers, if you get a noisy suspension, if you've got, poor running condition and engine light, any of these sorts of failures that, you would have to fix the car because something on it broke through just normal use, the dealership covers that under warranty. And the idea that it's going to be voided because you put some springs on your car is just, it's just wrong. It just goes to show that over time, the scare tactics that have been employed have been just really effective at making people afraid of modifying their vehicle. Now, I will say that you do have to measure this with some I'm going to use the word common sense, even though I have exception with that term. You have to kind of like use your brain a little bit. So does putting springs on your car mean that everything that could go wrong with it is going to be covered? Well, there are certain things that maybe wouldn't be covered that you might have trouble with your dealer if you did modify them. For example, if your shocks started making noise, and you had changed to, springs, Tane springs or Eibach springs, they're probably going to look at those springs and be like, well, you changed the factory setup. We can't really cover warranty on the shocks. If we could find that the shocks have gone bad, but you have aftermarket springs on there, well, who's going to be surprised that those shocks aren't going to be covered? I mean, I hope nobody. Or premature wearing tires, or clunking over bumps. Like, anything to do with those springs, the installation of the springs or anything like that is going to have an impact on the dealer's ability to completely cover anything to do with the suspension. Certain things may or may not become an issue. A broken sway bar link, a gray area, right? You might be looking at something like uh, you hit the ground and tore a hole in your muffler or something. I'm just making something up at this point. But the car being lowered than the factory spec might impact the car's ability to traverse certain things. So, I mean, if you rip a hole in your muffler, something big enough to do that is going to do it, even if it's the car's stock height. But, that's kind of like a gray area thing. Now, how do you get gray areas overturned? Well, you get the dealer on your side by being a good customer. Like, did you buy the car at that dealer? When you bought the car, were you, a good customer at that time? I mean, good dealerships that are treating their customers right will actually take a new car customer over to the service area, introduce them to somebody. They might take them to the parts department. The parts people are kind of like, part of the dirty underbelly of the dealership world. Nobody really likes going over there. But, and I say this as a parts guy, and, I just know. I've worked at a lot of dealerships, and the parts department is sort of like, the raft being tugged behind the boat, so to speak. But yeah, I mean, you should line up with the service department when you buy a car. If that person sees you again for, your complimentary oil change, great. If they see you again, never, then you might have a little bit of a harder hill to climb when you got a warranty claim for something questionable. If you have a warranty claim for something that's legit, if you take care of your recalls right away. Oh, when the next service comes and you have to pay for it, did you come back again? Forming a relationship with the people at the dealership is going to help you in the long run, because it's going to help mitigate some of the strife that comes along with these gray area cases where, they have ground to stand on for not covering a certain failure. And as I'm thinking about it, the hole in the muffler is a road hazard concern. It really wouldn't be a muffler, a warranty thing to begin with. So if you picked up on that one when I said it the first time, good for you. But the point remains, you might be able to get something covered that might not even normally be covered under warranty, even if it was something that was like not modified, wear and tear on your seats or interior panels, or we had a situation with our TLX with the B pillars were melting and cracking. We thought that they were defective. We took it to the dealer, and the dealer was like, this isn't really a defect. Like, these got hot. Like, do you park outside? And we're like, a lot of the times we were at the time. And he said, something's getting it hot and causing it to do this. But they replaced them for us one time under warranty. Later on, we got another one replaced that was a different one, and a mirror cap that was melting too. But then I found out about this hot spot in my house. The sun reflects off the windows in front of it, and it creates this like reflected beam that passes across my driveway. And if the car is parked in the path of that beam and the B pillar is there, then you get this like super concentrated hot beam reflecting off the window like a magnifying glass cooking ants or whatever. And it melts those parts. It's ridiculous. I mentioned it in my TSX, in my TSX What's in the Trunk video. I showed you my Odyssey spoiler is kind of melting, and it seems outrageous that the material that they're made out of is why they're melting from the heat. I have other cars that don't melt, so I'm kind of like, I'm personally in between on that one. Like, yeah, it gets hot there, but people live in hot places. The car shouldn't be melting. So I don't know. The point is that I got a few of them replaced, but they're kind of done replacing those for me now because we figured out why they're melting. But yeah, forming a relationship with the dealership. Similar to the last podcast, or I have another one about relationships matter. Being cool, being a regular customer. This all helps get warranties pushed through. Now, if you're the type of person that's like, no, I don't want to overpay the dealership to do my services. And they owe me warranty coverage because I paid for it, basically, and you did. If I only show up for warranty claims, like, screw them. That's what I want to do. That's fine. You could take that stance also. And you know what? You are still protected too. In a gray area situation, like, let's just say you installed the a tuner on the car, right? And it raised the boost, and they found out about it. And you have a problem with your transfer case. This is, again, a TLX issue. Oh, you have a problem with the transfer case. The output shaft splines are stripping against the drive line. Like, well, the transmission output shaft to the transfer case, those have been stripping. It's a little ridiculous, but people are claiming that this is happening on cars that they don't launch, which I don't fully believe, and cars that they're driving normally, which I don't believe that either, and also cars that are completely stock. Well, that's hard to not believe, but I believe that that's true too. I mean, it's hard to say that somebody just driving around normally, like a perfect saint all the time, is going to have that issue. But hey, maybe they do, right? But if you show up and you've got that issue where your all-wheel drive system isn't working because the driveline splines have stripped, then they kind of got to cover it. That's under powertrain warranty, which is even longer than the bumper-to-bumper warranty. But they found out you have a tune. Well, what difference does that make, right? Okay, so we're increasing the torque output of the engine. That could be a factor. But as far as I know, you can't raise the torque limit beyond a safe level anyway on these cars, even with like a K-tuner, for example. Because you have a tune, this is one of my favorites. Because you have a tuner, you must have been racing the car, right? So we're not going to cover it because you've abused the car and caused this to happen. I love that one because there's like no proof. There's no proof that you've done that at all. So what are your protections here? Well, that's where the Magnuson-Moss Warranty Act comes into play. It was recognized at a certain point in history that warranties were offered for vehicles when they were new, but there wasn't any regulation around those that helped guide, that helped draw a line where dealerships, and then car manufacturers by extension of that, didn't want to cover things under warranty. Because why? Because it costs them money. Right? And so if you show up and you're like, oh, my headliner's falling down, they go, well, that's not covered under warranty because this BS reason. My suspension bushings have fallen out too, or they completely failed. I'm like, well, that's not covered because of this baloney reason over here. Well, where does it stop and where does it end? I mean, what good is a warranty if they could just say that nothing is covered? I feel like we've all kind of maybe had experiences with companies like that, but cars are a big investment and these repairs cost a lot of money and people needed some sort of protection. And so the Magnuson-Moss Warranty Act was passed, reading my notes here, in 1975. It's a federal statute that governs warranties in consumer products. It doesn't require that a product has a warranty, but if a warranty exists, that certain communications have to be there. You have to be able to know the details of the warranty before you buy said product. You have to be able to understand what's covered and what's not covered, the difference between a full or limited liability. There are implications of things that are covered and they can't hide behind the fact that, oh, well, you had a warranty, but this particular component wasn't covered under that warranty. Like, that disclaimer has to be made up front. But the part that we're really mostly concerned about is the part to do with replacing parts with aftermarket ones. And this has been a big problem in the automotive industry for a long time because the factory, they would just assume that you would never modify it. Every part that you put on it would be a genuine replacement part. You would get all your repairs done at the dealership. They don't even want independent shops working on the vehicles a lot of times, which is a whole other set of, legal things that keep coming up over and over and over again, the right to repair sorts of things. We'll talk about that in a different podcast. But at the end of the day, this question of whether something is covered or not has to be disclosed. And then when you get to the point in time that you are trying to file a claim for a warranty on a part that's failed on a vehicle, if they find that some aftermarket work has been done to it or some aftermarket shop, and when I say aftermarket, I don't just mean modifying. Like if you had your oil changes done at some other independent repair shop, Uncle Joe's Speedy Auto Repair or something like that, and get your Honda up on a lift and they find a Wix filter on it instead of a Honda one. Well, I mean, they could void your engine warranty because of that. But why? Like how would that even make sense? An oil filter is an oil filter. It does a pretty simple job. People can't be having a void warranty because of a situation like that. Now, is it possible that the oil filter could cause, let's just call oil starvation, and that resulted in the engine seizing up and, or breaking, ruining bearings or something? Sure. But you know what? They have to prove it. And that's really where the Magnuson-Moss Warranty Act comes into play for us. If they're looking at that oil filter and they suspect it as being a problematic part, they got to take it off, cut it apart, see what failed inside. They have to prove that that oil filter actually did cause the starvation problem that you had. It couldn't just blame it by looking at it. Same thing with the tune, right? If you have a tune on the car, sure, powertrain products might be related to that. But I think they would actually have to prove that, you were doing some torque level that was exceeding what the product was designed to handle. And, that stuff largely isn't documented. So the proof is really kind of tough to come up with in that case. If they wanted to, void the warranty on the turbocharger because you raised the boost, there might be something to do with that. But even then, these are all, like, the tuner is an electronic component, and it does create physical output of the engine that can have a downstream effect on the reliability. But at the end of the day, I mean, that type of part, if it strips, it's because it failed. It's not because we broke it or something like that. So anyway, long story short, no, putting an intake system on your car won't void the warranty on your power seats. If you put suspension on your car, no. If your turbo fails, they can't say that you were racing it because your car is lowered a little bit. Whatever it is that goes wrong with it has to do with actually the product that you put on. And then they have to prove it too. So I'm pretty sure I'm going to change almost nobody's mind. People who are concerned about their warranty above all, I mean, there's no changing that mind, right? Like, unless you just aren't aware of the facts, which, that's what I'm trying to convey here for you. If you're really nervous, you think something's going to go wrong with your car. I don't know why you bought this car if you thought something was going to go wrong with it. But if you really think something's going to go wrong with it, then don't modify it. Just ride out the warranty. When it's done, trade it in for something new and just never modify a car. I was chuckling just a moment ago because I actually did have a Ford Expedition for a little while with the turbo engine in it, the turbo V6, and I did want to flash that thing, but I was a little nervous of turbo or transmission problems because Ford, I just didn't really trust it not to have an issue, and I didn't want to be on the hook for a new turbo if I had tuned it, and then they was going to blame that for it. I just didn't want to get into that fight. The car didn't really need more power anyway, so I was fine. But that's a perfect example of me, not wanting to void a portion of my warranty. And that vehicle was leased also. So that's another thing to keep in mind. If you lease a vehicle, that's not your car. So doing modifications and things like that to a leased vehicle, has a whole other set of concerns around it. When you go to trade it in, are they going to document that your car was modified or whatever? I don't really know. But anyway, point made. Don't worry about voiding your warranty if you're not that worried about the car just falling apart. If you want to do a few mods to it, go ahead. They really don't have a case to void the bumper to bumper. It just would never happen. But if you are really conservative, don't modify it. Simple as that. So that's it. Thank you very much for listening. I'm going to try alternating between like automotive and maybe some business related topics. Like the relationships podcast was kind of off the automotive topic. I don't really want to go there all the time, but I think some of those things are important to say too. But we'll try to go back and forth and try to keep it interesting. If you have any questions, comments, ideas for a podcast, leave them in the YouTube video comments, and I'll be sure to take that into account. In the meantime, thank you for listening. Heel Toe is in your corner, And it's time to shift up, everybody. Shop Heel Tell.